we haven't talked about OpenELA yet. OpenELA is a trade association between CIQ, Oracle, and SUSE, really focused on making sure that the source code for enterprise Linux is always publicly accessible to everybody, and that we all can go and build downstream derivatives of enterprise Linux while maintaining compatibility. We can add value if we want. So one of the things that I've been pitching quite a bit is I really want to have an enterprise Linux kernel that is collaboratively maintained using something much more similar to the Android kernel module. And this is something that Greg Crow Hartman and I have spoken about a few times, that there's a real opportunity here to, I think, do something that is much better than what the status quo is. So when we talk about operating system, and this again ties back into your question about operating system maintenance and whatnot, I see that is probably the best way that we can be handling the kernel moving forward. Now, it will require resetting of some expectations and some alignment from some of the primary vendors in the ecosystem. I would love to see that alignment and that collaboration happening in an open forum, such that we can all be part of this, not being locked behind a single vendor door.
What was the name of that organization that has just been formed?
Oh, OpenELA. It stands for the Open Enterprise Linux Association. And it is a 501c6 trade association that today is responsible for just making sure that, this is funny to even say, but to make sure that open source software is freely available. So
we may think it's funny to say, but it's not.
Yes. So it basically is making sure that, for example, anybody can go and grab enterprise Linux sources and go build an operating system based on that. The goal of that, again, some operating systems add value, like Oracle. They actually have a number of different changes to enterprise Linux, such that it can provide a substrate to their database and other corporate utilities that Oracle pushes and provides. So they have various optimizations in there and whatnot, and they track a much newer kernel. But part of that is because they can't track the Red Hat kernel very much anymore. Because the other thing that has happened is the upstream enterprise Linux kernel has no longer is providing patches or Git history or context on what is being changed. It's a black box it's a tarball that just has an export of the current status with no patches. Considering how big the kernel is, it's very difficult to debug what's going on and to make changes to that. So Oracle has decided that they're going to run with their own kernel that, again, is based on something closer to upstream. So we're seeing this happen. We're seeing some of this happen. And I do believe that is the future. It has to be the future, in my opinion, for enterprise Linux. And I'm hoping that OpenELA will provide to be a good home for how do we all collaborate. And as I said, we already have SUSE, Oracle, and my company CIQ involved in this, and we are collaborating. And it's quite amazing to see the caliber of engineers and people associated with this from each one of these three companies, all working together. And to the point that I made earlier, this is what open source is all about: having competitors come together and solve problems where we can now all build value on top of that in our own special ways. Like, the value of CIQ is different than the value of SUSE. And as a result, we have got a fantastic relationship with SUSE. We have a fantastic relationship with Oracle because of this.
To your comment about, making sure that open source software remains openly available, the Open Infra Foundation has this exact thing as one of the primary goals. We articulate that all the time, and especially more recently as changes happen in the ecosystem, and not necessarily changes, but events happen in the ecosystem that are not really friendly to this mission and goal to really preserve the open source ecosystem and the projects and all the values that it brings to individuals as well as organizations, companies, anyone who's participating. we very often just throw out the numbers that 80% of all the code is open source, relying on open source. If you're using any kind of modern tool that runs software, that will have open source components to it and open source code in it. So it's not like it's going away, like it is there. It is fundamentally part of our lives. So it really is on us to figure out how to sustain this ecosystem, and it's a sad thing to say that we have to have that as an articulated goal, and it's not something that's just self-explanatory. That it is something that is a value and goal for everybody.
Mhm. It's funny. This conversation is reminding me. I had a GM, a pickup truck, and it had an infotainment system on it. And not every time that I turn on the car, but every now and then, it would actually have a splash screen. And in that splash screen, it would say something along the lines of, "This infotainment system uses open source software. For more information and to download it, go to this URL." That is so far above and beyond, I think, what they had to do there. But I love it. I really love how they embrace the fact that there is open source software in here. And it's possible their legal team told them to do it to mitigate some of the license risks and the legal risks. But I don't see many other infotainment systems in cars doing that. So I think it was a really nice move of GM to do that. And I think I'm 99% sure it was either my GM or my Dodge. I don't remember which. It was one of those two. But and I remember seeing it, and I remember at some point thinking I should take a picture of it, and then I sold the car. So I never got a picture of it, but I like cars, so I go through cars.
I think this is pretty cool. It literally gave me chills.